On a Zoom call and said something inappropriate while you thought your mic was muted, or did something embarrassing while you thought your camera was off? One time I was playing video games in one of my Zoom classes and I was being really loud. Little did I know that my mic was on and the whole Zoom class could hear me. I turned off my mic as quickly as I could and I sat there wondering how my mic got turned back on. There are many different ways to view technology in our everyday lives, especially in somewhere like a workplace. An obvious plus side would be how we can communicate with each other. But one we don't think about as often is how it could ruin our personal relationships with someone or how people can misinterpret things you say online. One main reason technology harms our interpersonal connections is because you can dodge relationship problems just by sending a text message out, or oh my gosh. Can I restart it?
Okay, yeah. All right, you guys, just a quick reminder, remember, go slowly, and if you make a mistake, cover it up, cover it up. Eli volunteered
Even volunteered to go first, man.
And we kind of like had a technology glitch, so maybe it's better if this is working. But remember, speak slowly. If you mess up, just take a breath, find your place, and keep going. Hide your mistakes. You got this, Eli.
One main reason technology harms our interpersonal connections is because you can dodge relationship problems just by sending a text message out. Many people all over the world will just send out a text message if they are too scared to do something, which may be a reason why technology is hindering our personal connections. According to an article by NBC, people think this is okay, but in reality it's not. On the surface, these texts may seem like an acceptable way to handle daily communication, but they are actually all examples of ways to avoid conflict, from making lying easier to avoiding in-person confrontation. This is true for many different people, including me. One time, I really did not want to go to work, so I called in sick. Once I called in sick, I stayed inside all day and sent out a text message to avoid the in-person confrontation of my boss. With technology, people take this as an opportunity to make lying easier, and after they lie, they will dodge in-person problems for the time being. It is just too simple to come into work late and say, "Oh, I was stuck in traffic," and many people abuse this privilege to technology. However, there are ways humans can use technology to improve our relationships. It takes too long to write letters by hand now, so it is much easier to send someone to call someone or send out a text message. And to be quite frank, a good amount of businesses rely on technology to stay productive. According to an article from the National Library of Medicine, indeed the rate of communicative instances via technology in 2020 is outstanding. 350 million photos uploaded to Facebook, 500 million tweets, and 3 billion Snapchats, and 26 billion texts a day by Americans alone. These numbers show us how important technology is to the everyday American. We use these 26 billion texts to stay connected and in some instances stay productive at work, even during a time like COVID. Another thing technology interferes with is time and the procrastination of tasks. Time is a very valuable thing, especially in today's world. And with all these social media apps on our phones, we can get easily carried away. According to an article published by NPR, teens often say, like, "Oh, just one more video. Oh, just one more video." And time goes by, and I'm like, I've wasted 2 hours on my phone when I could have been doing something more productive. Personally, I have fallen victim to this many different times. I would procrastinate my homework until I barely had any time to do it, just because I would scroll on my phone for hours and hours. People can get easily distracted and do what they want to do rather than what they need to do, like working or sleeping. And many teens in the U.S. often show off how little they slept, like it's a good thing. And many teens in the U.S. often don't get a good amount or like a healthy amount of sleep. Technology should only be used this way if you are bored and have nothing else to do. There are a ton of positives when it comes to having technology in our everyday life, such as connecting with each other and staying productive. But they come with some negatives, like dodging face-to-face problems and wasting time. The best way for us to use technology is to balance everyday interactions with text messages along with face-to-face communication. Once we resolve these issues, we can view technology more positively than we view it right now.
One thing we did forget, we need everybody's photos. I have no yearbook photos for
Okay.
We could do it at the very end. The end of the period. I need everybody for 2 seconds.
Okay, so let's make sure, does someone in the front row want to take photos?
It's better to have an dramatic photo than just,
Okay.
otherwise they're
Okay. Okay, all right. Our next speaker is Melissa.
Have you ever sent a message to a friend or leave for autocorrect to completely butcher it? Or have you ever accidentally dialed a number without knowing you did? Both have happened to me. One time, during my 8th grade trip to a water park, I had just gotten off a water ride and it was time for lunch. I grabbed my phone with wet hands, and the water, with a mind of its own, accidentally dialed a number without... I walked outside to meet the others, chatting with a friend, only to hear a voice coming from my phone. I couldn't make out what the other person said. It turns out I called a stranger and they stayed on the line for about 5 minutes to overhear my private conversation with my friend. Take it from me. Never touch your phone with wet hands. The outcome is guaranteed to be awkward. With modern technology, there are countless methods used to instantly communicate with each other worldwide, and that includes texting, video calls, email, and social media. While modern communication has its advantages to make life more efficient, there are also disadvantages when it comes to interpersonal communication, such as a decrease of meaningful face-to-face interactions and negative effects on our mental health. Communication is one of the most important aspects to society, and modern technology like FaceTime, texting, and social media help maintain those relationships. Ever since technology has started to advance, new ways of communicating have been developed. In an NPR article, it says, according to a survey of Americans by Pew Research Center published last year, 1 in 10 partner adults, meaning those who are married, living with a partner, or in a committed romantic relationship, have met their current significant other through a dating site or app. Our lives have been transformed by this new approach of communication. No matter where we are in the world, we can connect instantaneously with a quick call or text. For example, with the rise of social media, people are more connected than ever. Posts or stories on social media help keep people updated on their lives, especially if they have moved away or gone on vacation. I still keep in touch with a friend that has moved away through texting, social media, and FaceTime. Our friendship would have faded without these digital tools. Still, it is not as meaningful as having in-person interactions. There are many disadvantages that come with the less meaningful forms of communicating, such as texting, emails, and video calls. These include less face-to-face communication, superficial time-wasting communication, and the misinterpret texts. Nonverbal cues help people understand emotions and intentions. Therefore, texting reduces the ability for us to understand how the other person is feeling. As stated in an article from business.com, nonverbal communication, such as tone of voice, facial expressions, helps people interpret what someone is saying and their corresponding emotions. Some technological communication eliminates these cues, leading to misinterpretation. It is hard to interpret a message without reading body language, facial expressions, and the tone in their voice. So that often leads us to misinterpret texts and hurt one another. A text can be sent to be funny, but it can easily be misinterpreted and think it was rude, leading to an unnecessary fight. In my experience, I have sent a message to a friend that I was blocking them after a little disagreement in a joking manner, but it blew up into a huge argument. Interactions through text cannot replace the real interactions we have away from our screens. It is important to not be glued to our phones our whole lives if we want to develop the skills to identify nonverbal cues. Social media was created to help bring people together. But lately, it has been causing isolation and affecting the mental health of many teens and adults. Scrolling for hours on social media ever since the pandemic, has had a negative impact on the mental health of many teens and adults, like depression and anxiety. An article from NPR claims, the problems that came from the pandemic for our youth with their social skills, their isolation, higher rates of depression, higher rates of suicidal thinking, all that's still happening. The use of social media during the pandemic was high, and that continued over the years. People started to rely on social media for a sense of comfort. Users were comparing themselves to that of social media. Before social media, teens hung out with their friends daily, and by 2012, around the time social media was a hit, social outings diminished. Nowadays, you see people sitting next to each other, but they are on their phones instead of interacting with each other. Situations like cyberbullying are factors that have caused depression and suicidal thoughts. Technology gives people the power of hiding behind a screen, and they hurt others because they think it's funny. On the news, many situations of cyberbullying have been mentioned, like teenagers creating fake accounts on social media to message hurtful things, make rumors, and post mean stuff about the person they are bullying. This leads to the person being bullied to isolate themselves from the world because they feel like they are no longer good enough. Modern communication through technology has offered many advantages by making communication faster, more efficient, and being able to communicate with anyone around the world. But there are drawbacks to these benefits. Our heavy reliance on technology has significantly decreased our face-to-face interactions, with texting and FaceTime slowly replacing genuine interactions, weakening interpersonal communication in the process. Not to mention the rise of social media that affects our health. With the world becoming more technologically advanced, we can see isolation and an increase of depression in teens and adults from what we have seen over the years. Society has had many technological achievements, but those accomplishments are hurting us more than it is helping. Technology is taking control over our lives. Thank you.
Have you ever been on the phone with someone in public talking, and the person next to you can't see that you're on the phone? They think that you're talking to them, so they start responding to you. Once, I was in a store waiting to check out, and I was talking to my mom. I was telling her to hurry up and get back in line, and the person next to me replied angrily and said, "No, be patient." Things like this happen all the time with phones in our everyday lives. Using phones as our primary communication is ruining interpersonal relationships, but there are a lot of positives that come with technology. It can connect people from across the world, it allows people to create things, express themselves, and it creates job opportunities. If I needed to call a friend and they were across the world, with the click of a button, I could be looking and talking to them through FaceTime or Zoom. It is very useful because before technology, if I wanted to have a conversation with someone from across the world, I would have to write a letter and mail it out. That would take way too long. Business.com states, instead of writing letters to people in different time zones, we can log in to Zoom or Google Meet and chat with them as though we were in the same room. This is really helpful and we take it for granted. If you have a health issue, you can call a doctor from your home. My dad has a heart problem, and from June Lake, in his office, he can call a doctor working in LA and get assistance. Also, if you are in danger or hurt, then you can call 911 and receive help. Although communication has become much more convenient, interpersonal communication has worsened with more talking happening, but it's not face-to-face. With more advancements in technology, the ability to create and express yourself has become easier. Creating things on tech like art has become easier with things like the Apple Pencil. Apple has a pencil that you can use to draw on the device, and it is easier than using your finger. Expressing yourself is very easy online. You can create your own profile on social media and have it describe things about you. Online work can become easier too. The American Public University says, emerging sites cater to niche interests and facilitate family and friend connections. They also offer emotional support and promote boutique products, health aids, charities, business brands, education, political activism, and so much more. Apps and social media allow you to share your work with others, and you can also use the app to get help from people to solve problems. With apps, you can collaborate with people online and design something from anywhere. There are lots of apps and websites that have been created by normal people that are very helpful, like social media apps, weather apps, and news apps. Although this helps us build relationships with like-minded people, but it doesn't help our interpersonal communication because we aren't talking face-to-face like we should be. Finally, with easier communication, applying and finding jobs has become easier. You can give out your resume online. There's also apps that allow you to look at places that are hiring. The only downside to interpersonal communication with coworkers isn't improving because of less face-to-face collaborating. The American Public University also explains it allows you to access both your strong and weak connections. Increasing the spectrum of possible connections can help individuals and organizations identify specific parties with shared interests or goals, experience solving similar challenges, or even develop tools or methods for completing a mutual task. With the amount of people on the internet, you can send out a job search with specific details and most likely find someone that matches that job perfectly. Again, you can collaborate online to make the job easier. Online jobs have also become easier with chatbots. Some websites have chatbots that you can use to ask questions if you need help with something. With all these advancements and upsides to technology, like job opportunities, the ability to create and express yourself, and how people from across the world can communicate with each other, the influence that technology is having on our society is positive, but it isn't helping us with interpersonal communication. I think that the positive outweigh the negatives.
Okay, so you guys, when you go out, remember, speak slowly, look up, and say thank you at the end so we know you're finished. Do your best.
Imagine texting a friend something funny, only for them to think you're mad. Sending a quick LOL after they share a funny meme, only for them to leave you unread. Confused, you realize that your short reply didn't come across as playful as you planned. Or maybe you're scrolling through Instagram, seeing everyone on amazing vacations while you're stuck at home in your pajamas, feeling left out. Technology is everywhere, and while it makes our lives easier, it often creates problems we didn't always expect. The tools meant to bring us closer can at times push us further apart. While technology has made communication faster and more convenient, it has significantly impacted interpersonal communication by weakening personal relationships, negatively affecting mental health, and reducing nonverbal communication skills. Texting and social media may seem like a quick and easy way to connect, but it often sacrifices the emotional connection we get from in-person conversations. Over-relying on these forms of communication can leave us feeling more isolated than before. Maggie Mulqueen, in her article for NBC News, analyzes the overusage of texting and its effects on relationships. She explains, texting has become the dominant mode of communication, but it often sacrifices the emotional depth and context of in-person interactions, often leaving relationships less fulfilling. I mean, think about it. How many dumb arguments have started over misunderstood text? You send fine and they think you're upset, or you leave out an emoji and suddenly it's what's wrong. Without tone or body language, texting can easily lead to misunderstandings. Texting lacks the ability to clarify misinterpretations at the moment. Even if you text more frequently, it doesn't mean that you're truly connecting. Over time, this lack of emotional depth can create unwanted distance and may weaken personal relationships. So with all that, social media takes it a whole step further, especially when it comes to mental health. While connecting people globally, social media often harms our mental stability, especially among teenagers. By creating this false sense of connection, it leaves many seeking external validation. And over time, people start to rely on this form of connection. Rose Conlon from NPR writes, "Heavy use of social media has been linked to increased anxiety, depression, and feelings of social isolation, particularly in teenagers who are still developing their sense of identity." If you've ever compared yourself to someone on Instagram or TikTok, if it's from fame, wealth, beauty, or even just pure happiness, then you wouldn't be the first to do so. Social media often shows an idealized version of life, essentially a highlighted reel filled with amazing vacations, flawless selfies, and capturing the perfect moments. When we spend hours scrolling, we risk losing our self-confidence and feeling like we don't measure up. This constant comparison can lead to lower self-esteem and make us forget about the positive aspects of staying connected in the first place. And as if that weren't enough, technology also impacts how we communicate nonverbally, which is an important skill for building real, meaningful connections. Relying on technology reduces our ability to understand and interpret nonverbal cues, which makes it harder to pick up on body language and facial expressions, which are key to real-life communication. A study by Molly A. Rubin examined how screen-based communication impacts interpersonal skills. The research found heavy reliance on digital communication reduces opportunities to practice reading facial expressions and body language, skills essential for meaningful interactions. Without practicing these skills, how will we know when someone is upset, joking, or even sarcastic? Losing these skills, our ability to respond and recognize nonverbal cues, creates barriers in both personal and professional relationships. Also, just making face-to-face conversation awkward and hard to navigate. It's like losing a muscle you never use. If you don't practice, those skills get weak. Technology has transformed communication, but not always for the better. While it helps us stay connected, it also weakens the quality of our interactions. Texting lacks emotional depth, social media harms self-esteem, and too much screen time reduces our ability to engage in real-life conversations. To keep the genuine human connection we have, we need to be more mindful on how we use technology, prioritizing meaningful face-to-face interactions and focusing on quality conversation over convenience. Remember, the people around you do matter, and don't let technology hold back the development of stronger, healthier relationships. Thank you.
Just in 2023 alone, U.S. consumers lost a record of $10 billion to fraud. A couple years ago, someone from a foreign country across the world called my grandpa and said his son got into a car accident and he needed to withdraw some crazy amount of money for hospital bills and court things. My grandpa believed this because he didn't know how easily you can access people's phone numbers and information through the internet, so he thought it was real, and he almost fell for it. He was about to go to the bank and get the money until my mom and I told him it was a scammer. After this, con artists kept calling him and we would have to answer and hang up. This clearly shows modern technology was not helping my grandpa communicate effectively. The constant use of technology by all of us has started to affect people's interpersonal relationships and mental health. Although our phones let us communicate with each other easily and quickly, we end up just texting all the time to say very little instead of talking face to face. This hurts our relationships because people don't practice meaningful communication enough anymore. It has gotten so bad recently that scamming has become a big problem in the present day. Although technology can be used to harm our relationships, it helps people communicate easily with each other, even if they are across the world, or even if they are on the other side of the world. This can be helpful if people feel lonely because it helps you to connect with communities and groups from the comfort of your own room. An article by Exploros states, electronic communication has improved international relationships by making global communication more accessible. Technology has helped to create awareness of global issues by increasing the amount of international news. Electronic communication has created new opportunities for expanding businesses internationally. New technology allows us to contact our friends and family when we are sick or just don't want to go out of the house. And if you It allows us to connect with people all over the world. And if you meet the right people, you can really express yourself and show everyone what you like and who you are. Although social media lets you communicate with people around the world and express yourself, it can also lead you to compare yourself to other people's posts and lives. A lot of people post a curated and fake version of their life to make you think everyone is living in some perfect reality because they are always exciting and looking perfect. An article by the Integrated Psychological Professional Service states that social media presents a curated version of people's lives, often showcasing only the highlights and success. This can lead to a distorted perception of reality, as individuals may compare their lives to their idealized version of others. No one on social media posts the bad parts of their life. They just show people the highlights. No one does something fun and exciting every day or goes on a vacation every week. Social media makes living and beauty standards so high, most people can't keep up with them, and they don't need to. Social media just makes people think they have to keep up with everything and live like influencers. I can relate to this because I always see people posting how much clothing they have, and this sets unrealistic expectations for me because you have to put a lot of time, money, and effort into having the collection of things that people online have. Technology is also making us lose sleep. Most people go on TikTok or something before they go to sleep, and the blue light from the phone makes our brain think it is daytime, so it is harder for us to fall asleep. Some people even brag about how little sleep they got last night like it's a good thing. Lack of sleep on its own can lower mental health. An article on NPR states, teenage girls are doing little else than sleeping, going to school, and engaging with social media. The percentage of 10th and 12th graders who slept 7 or fewer nights each night rose from 1/3 to nearly 1/2. Sleep is crucial for teens' physical and mental health, and majority of teens aren't getting enough sleep. This will affect their anxiety and maybe even worse things. If social media on its own lowers people's mental health, imagine the combination of being on your phone all day and being sleep deprived. Ever since smartphones have come out to the general population, anxiety, depression, and loneliness have all increased. Another article by NPR states, on its own, sleep deprivation can cause mental health issues. Sleep is absolutely crucial for physical health and mental health. I personally don't usually get enough sleep on school nights because of homework and when school starts. I can definitely notice the effects of it in school and public. If I don't get to sleep, I'm usually very anxious or mad the next day and don't want to go to school. Social media and smartphones let people connect and talk with each other in digital spaces, even if they are across the world from each other. Although this is a great achievement for us, it can also be damaging to us because the amount of time people spend on their phones nowadays is hindering their interpersonal communication skills, making them more anxious and causing depression levels to spike. Thank you.
Have you ever gone out to dinner with your friends and noticed that everyone was on their phone instead of talking to each other? Do you look around the restaurant and notice that every family was doing the same thing? Or have you ever invited your friends over to your house to watch a movie and talk, but when they got there, instead of watching the movie, all day start looking at their cell phones and no one is talking to each other? Technology on cell phones is taking over the world. Technology is a very necessary tool that many people use to communicate with people far away, using applications such as FaceTime or text message, so that's easier to stay in touch with that person. But at the same time, this technology is affecting interpersonal communication because these new methods are replacing that true in-person communication. We spend so much time on this application, it's affecting us in a bad way. We don't talk to each other face-to-face anymore. Technology harms the way children communicate with each other. Children between the age of 5 and 12 should not use technology, specifically social media. Children of young age are not ready to use technology because they enter into a new dangerous world without knowing it. According to a recent NPR article, social media for children is a bit like the ocean. She says nothing that can be extremely dangerous place for children. Technology can be a very complicated thing adults and even more for children, because there's so much stuff they might not understand yet. That's why parents need to be more attentive to children when they use technology. Just as a parents prepare a child to learn to swim or give them a safety gear like a vest, also parents need to prepare children before using technology. Technology is a tool that is used for many things, but what it's most used for is to communicate and interact on social networks with other people. Something, however, this interaction cause anxiety and loneliness. One of the most common cases of depression is in social media, because it shows a very different world than the one we are used to live. In the same article from NPR Physiology, Jen Twing says rates of depression, anxiety, and loneliness were rising, and she had hypothesis for the case smartphones and all the social media that comes along with them. One of the reasons why people become more depressed is because they compare themselves with other people that they see on the internet, where people who use those social networks show exuberant luxury and beauty. And that makes people who see that content feels inferior or insecure about themselves for not having the same opportunities of them. These insecurities make people block themselves and enter a world of sadness and lose connection with people who are interested in them. One problem is that we use this technology too much. Technology should serve to improve communication with people, not replace it. In the article from Business.com, we use the detrimental effects of digital communication tools mostly comes from people overusing technology or neglecting basic communication ethics. These tools diminish the essence of human communication. People forget that they reach people, and they selfish focus on what they can get ASAP. Technology is interfering in true communication because face-to-face talking is better than talking to the person through a screen. Technology gives us many options to communicate over the internet a long distance, and it's something that's very effective if you want to know how the person is and you can't go to visit them. Sorry. In many cases, you call or send a message to that person thinking that this is enough to show interest in that person. But in reality, we forget that there's various ways to communicate. Technology is a very useful tool and has a great potential to improve communication between people, such at work or within the family. Sorry. But the truth is that we are not currently using technology as we should. Instead of helping us improve our communication, it's doing the opposite. It's putting a strain on people connection, and it's getting in the way. Thank you.
All right, guys. Good job, everyone. For people who are watching online, we will be back up when second period starts around 8:58 or so. We will be back up with our speakers from second period. Good job, everybody. You guys, usually I make brownies so everyone can have a brownie after they give their speech. But what